Alright guys, welcome to Storm Boy, the game. I think this is based off of a book. The game's not supposed to be too long, so let's go ahead and jump in. Apparently it's about a boy who lives by the coast in Australia and has like seagulls for pets, I guess. Storm Boy lived with Hideaway Tom, his father. Years before, when Storm Boy's mother had died, he had left Adelaide and gone to live like a hermit by the sea. The only other man who lived there... does it pop back up? The only other man who lived anywhere near them was Fingerbone Bill, the Aboriginal. At first, Hideaway was afraid that Storm Boy would get lost, and so Hideaway looked for a landmark. One day he found a big piece of timber lying with the driftwood on the beach. "There," said Hideaway, "now you'll always have a lookout post. You'll be able to see it far up the beach, and you won't get lost." Some distance from the place where Hideaway and Fingerbone had built their humpies, I guess, the whole stretch of the Kurong and the land around it had been turned into a sanctuary. In the early morning, the tall birds stood up and clapped and cheered the rising sun. Storm Boy felt the excitement and wonder of it. He often sat on the shore all day with his knees up and his chin cupped in his hands. Sometimes he wished he'd been born an ibis or a pelican. Alright, daydreams like this can last as long as you like. Alright, you can control the bird. His father's voice roused him, and he ran down to the beach to help dig up a bag full of big cockles for their own tea. 100 cockles is the limit per person. Find as many as you can. Okay. For there is supposed to be like 100, I'm not like... I guess you have to press A to dig them up. I was about to say. Like there's supposed to be 100, but I'm not like seeing any. Guess I'll dig up like 10 of them. Then we'll move on. When Storm Boy went walking along the beach, or over the sandhills, or in the sanctuary, the birds were not afraid. They knew he was a friend. "Hello, Mrs. Penguin," said Storm Boy each day. "How are your bits of thistledown today?" But sometimes Storm Boy saw things that made him sad. In spite of the warnings and notices, people hurt the birds. Hopefully we don't have to see that. One morning, Storm Boy found everything in uproar and confusion. He heard a faint rustling and crying, and there under the sticks and grass of the broken nest were 3 tiny pelicans, still alive. Not sure we should be taking them out of the nest, Stormboy picked them up carefully and hurried back with them. 2 of the baby pelicans were fairly strong, but the third was desperately sick. It was 3 days before the baby pelican was well enough to sit up and ask for food. And that was how Mr. Proud, Mr. Ponder, and Mr. Percival came to live with Stormboy. Greedy pelicans will just keep eating fish. Yeah, you're supposed to throw them in their mouth. It's kind of difficult to do. Well, if he would have had it open there. That's the only one I can get. At last, Hideaway spoke sternly to Stormboy. Mr. Proud, Mr. Ponder, and Mr. Percival will have to go back to the sanctuary where they came from. We just can't afford to feed them anymore. Time for respectable pelicans to get their own breakfast, Hideaway grumbled, instead of begging from their friends. And as time went on, he really meant what he said. Stormboy was sad, but he always knew when his father had made up his mind. "Yes, Dad," he said. Hideaway sailed for 5 miles up the sanctuary before he stopped the boat. "Off you go," he said. "Now you'll have to look after yourselves." Hideaway and Stormboy spent the day fishing. It was fine and sunny, but somehow it seemed cold. Mr. Percival. Mr. Percival has come back. Ever since the miracle of Mr. Percival's rescue, he had been Stormboy's favorite. Well, that's kind of messed up. Stormboy often had fun on the beach with Mr. Percival. Guess we'll go on the boat now. Try swimming in different places to see what it's like underwater. Alright, so we'll check out one more place. all the way over here on the edge. Okay, not a whole lot to that. Alright, oh, does it actually say? That's kinda cool. You could definitely, like, draw inappropriate things there, I guess. Whenever he threw the ball, or a smooth pebble, or a sea urchin, or an old fishing reel, Mr. Percival snapped it up and brought it back. Alright, play fetch with Mr. Percival for as long as you like. Kinda sorry I threw it so far. Alright, moving on. If Storm Boy went swimming or sliding down sandhills or playing on the sand, Mr. Percival found a good spot nearby and perched there heavily to watch and wait until it was over. Alright, like a bunch of little mini games or something. One day as Hideaway was watching them play, he had an idea. If he can bring things back to you, perhaps he can carry things away too. As he slides down the hill. It was the year of the great storms that began in May, even before the winter had started. In the darkness of early morning, Storm Boy suddenly woke with Hideaway's voice in his ears. "It's a wreck," Hideaway said. "A shipwreck on the shore." "Look at them," Storm Boy yelled. "We must help them, they'll be drowned." And I guess it crashed. No? Alright. "How can we help?" said his father. "We can't throw a line, it's too far." Storm Boy gave a great shout. "Mr. Percival is the one to do it. He can fly." So now we have to fly over there. Alright, so I guess you have to stay on the screen, otherwise you fail. You've done it, Storm Boy, Hideaway, and Fingerbone shouted together as Mr. Percival landed on the beach. "You're a good, brave, clever pelican." Between them all, they slowly held the captain ashore and dragged him, pale and half-drowned, onto the beach. "Saved," he kept saying weakly, "saved by a miracle and a pelican." "You're a big, wonderful bird," he said. He looked up at Hideaway. "When he dies, you must send him to the museum. We'll put a label on the case, the pelican that saved 6 men's lives." Hideaway looked around quickly. He was glad Storm Boy hadn't heard the captain's words. For the rest of the year, everyone was happy. The storms went back to the cold south, the sun warmed the sandhills, and spring ran over the countryside with new leaves and little bush buds. Before long, the open season for duck shooting came round again. From the start, Mr. Percival hated the shooters. He harried them whenever he could. Sometimes he just sat staring at them rudely until they grew impatient and chased him away. But most of all, he flew round and round their hiding places in wide circles, like a cumbersome old aeroplane on patrol. Before long, the ducks understood Mr. Percival's warnings and kept away. The shooters grew angrier and angrier. And so it went on until one terrible morning in February. Don't shoot, it's Mr. Perce. His voice was drowned by the roar of the gun. In the world, Hideaway said sadly, there will always be men who are cruel, just as there will always be men who are lazy or stupid or wise or kind. Today you've seen what cruel and stupid men can do. And at 9 o'clock, Mr. Percival died. Mr. Percival, Stoneboy whispered, you're the best friend I ever had. And always above them, in their mind's eye, they could see the shape of two big wings in the storm clouds, and the flying scud, 2 wings of white with trailing black edges, spread across the sky. For birds like Mr. Percival do not really die. Alright, well I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. Sorry it was a sad ending. I didn't know how it would end. But yeah, that's messed up, but anyways, thanks for watching guys. See you next time. Bye guys.